Hey everyone, Darman Kelleher here again in my lovely little courtyard, and I hope you're doing well. I want to start off with this video by giving a big, huge thanks to my sister Jill Kelleher, who made a very generous donation to the Trans Housing Coalition in Atlanta. I donated a few books. She donated a lot of money. And so I want to thank her. I want to thank all of the people that have been buying my books also. It just makes my heart sing. So with that out of the way, I wanted to talk about why I went indie. And what that means is I went from traditional publishing to self-publishing. And a lot of us who do self-publishing, publish our own works, call ourselves indie authors. We're independent of a big publishing house. And originally, my original dream was to go the traditional publishing route. It had been my dream ever since I was a teenager, plunking out silly stories on a manual Smith Corona typewriter, way back in the late 70s, early 80s, because I'm old. And that was the dream. I mean, I would spend hours poring over Writer's Market looking for agents and publishing houses and all that. And when I got back into writing in the 2000s, that was still the dream. And my first two books were published by Alibi, which is an imprint of Random House. And I thought, aha, I've made it, because I had to get an agent, and I liked my agent very much, and she helped get me a 2-book deal with Alibi, and I thought, I have arrived. And of course, as it often is with like these big, massive dreams, sometimes the reality is not quite what you expect. And that was the case. I love the people at Alibi, but there were a number of things that came up for me. One is I hated the covers. Book covers, they need to reflect the genre. The covers in the genre. They don't need necessarily to reflect the story per se. So, I mean, you don't want to have an element on the cover that's not really in the story. So if you're writing a science fiction story, but it's not on spaceships, you don't want to have a cover that has spaceships on it, because you don't want to suggest something that's not in the story. But it just has to. It has to suggest the genre. It has to look professional. Those are the two real main things. So because you're dealing with reader expectations is what you're dealing. You're trying to communicate visually to readers what kind of story this is, what they can expect. And if you've got 2 books in a series, they should have common elements, the same typeface, just kind of the same same style. And the covers that Alibi did for my first 2 books did not meet genre expectations. They just, and they didn't look anything alike. And I say that not to disparage whoever the graphic designers were, because I know they put a lot of hard work into it, but they just didn't work. And also the book descriptions, that's what you read when you go onto like Amazon.com to find out what's the story about. There's an art to that too, and it's something a lot of authors hate doing, especially a lot of indie authors hate doing, because it's a different style of writing. It is copywriting. It has to be snappy. It has to have a certain structure to it, and it's hard to nail it. And the publisher didn't nail it at all. So one of the reasons why I went indie is because I needed more creative control. I wanted to deliver a professional product. Now the editing they did was great. They really helped edit my story and did a great bang up job on that. But the marketing aspects, the cover and the book description were a little bit lackluster. And so I wanted more creative control. Second, marketing. In traditional publishing, maybe, if you're lucky, they might do some things to help market your book for maybe a month or so. And they're more likely to do that if you don't already need the marketing. It's like getting a loan, right? If you need a loan, you can't get one. But if you don't need a loan, they'll throw money at you. Same way with marketing in traditional publishing. If you're already a big name celebrity, they will pour all that much more money into it because it's easy. And it used to be that publishers would invest in authors. They would really invest in new rising authors because they were already investing a little money in the cover design and editing and everything else. So might as well make it profitable, help people find these books. But today, if you're a complete unknown, they may not do much marketing at all, and they didn't do much marketing at all for me at all. And I wasn't expecting like an interview on the Today Show or Oprah books or anything like that. No, I mean, I just wanted some marketing, and there really wasn't much, especially after a few weeks. Yeah. And as an author, your book is still good after a month. I mean, people are just now discovering my books that have been out for 8 years because it's new to them. It may not be new to the publishing market, but it's new to these readers. And that's all that matters. And I invest a lot of money in marketing. Now, the thing is, I could do that if, traditionally published authors, it's often incumbent upon them to do their own marketing. But the thing about that is they get such a small cut of the cover price that it's not financially feasible because if you're running Facebook ads or you're doing paid newsletter promos, which if you're not familiar with those it's like BookBub, but there are a lot of smaller ones out there that are a little bit easier to get. And they can have a good return on investment, but only if you're making 70% of the cover price or more. If you're not making that, if you're making 5% of the cover price, then it's not so easy to make a return on that investment. And so I'm like, how am I supposed to market my book when I'm only getting a small chunk of the cover price? So all these things added up. So after Alibi decided not to extend my 2-book deal, I had a big think, and I sat and talked with my wife Eileen, and I decided I wanted to write a book series with a trans protagonist, because the first 2 books in the Shay Stevens series, lesbian protagonist, but she's cisgender, non-trans. And that was a hard enough sell to the traditional publishing world in and of itself. A lot of the publishers that my agent pitched to saying, we really love this story, we don't know how to market it. And what that means is they don't know how to reach readers who would be interested in lesbian crime fiction. It was basically another glass ceiling and another form of gatekeeping. And which is another reason why so many queer authors and other marginalized people choose the indie author path, because we're sick of the gatekeeping. We're sick of the heteronormative, ableist um, neurotypical thinking and male-dominated thinking in traditional publishing. Um, and so it just all added up. So, and I knew that uh, if I tried to pitch a trans crime thriller uh, to traditional publishing, would not have worked. So I went indie with that. And some of the other things I ran into with the traditional publishing is non-compete agreements, which now there was a recent court agreement or court decision saying that those are no longer valid. I don't know how, if that applies to publishing or not. Also, rights grabs. Alibi insisted on getting print rights to Iron Goddess and Snitch, and they did not print any print books. They only did the ebook, but they insisted on acquiring those rights. And, you know, if they had just wanted to do the ebook, fine, I could have handled the print book, but no, they didn't want to do that. They don't like competition, and they're just the rights grabs. It just didn't sit well with me. So now, as an indie author, I have all of the rights that I am free to choose to license however I choose. And I like that because, especially as new technology emerges, I can exploit those rights because they're my rights. And so, yeah, I went off on a tangent, but the downside, I mean, you think, okay, well, what does being an indie author mean? It means assuming the role of a publisher. And that comes with the creative freedom. It also comes with a lot of responsibility, both financial and professional. It means that I was responsible for hiring a freelance editor. Actually, I hired a team of editors. One, a line editor, and then a proofreader. Because I want to deliver as professional a product as I can. And that's not to say there aren't still typos in it. No editor, there were still typos. I'm going back through, I'm recording the audiobook for Iron Goddess, and there are still typos that the Alibi editors missed. And that's okay. We're all human. And to me, I like to think that the editors get so drawn into the story that they forget to do their jobs. So I think that's probably a good thing. And so I have to pay for editors, and editors are not cheap. I'll spend close to $1,000 on my editing, and some authors spend even more because it's a lot of work to edit a book. Also, I was responsible for my covers. I mean, you know, I dissed the covers that Alibi did, but designing your covers is hard work. It's a skill. And having my mother was a graphic designer, so I grew up learning a little bit about graphic design, and then later on I became a web designer, and I studied graphic design and all of the elements in that make that makes good graphic design. And I studied cover design specifically because that's its own niche. Just because you're a great graphic designer does not mean you'll be a great graphic designer or a cover designer. Bah. I've only had one cup of coffee today, and I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. So for my first several books, I hired cover designers, and they were expensive too. Especially not just the initial cover design, but you've got multiple formats, so they have to reformat the cover for ebook, paperback, and with paperback, you've got different, printers with different print specifications. So Amazon is different from Ingram Spark. It's different from Book Vault. and it's not a total redo, but you sometimes have to shift where things are so that they line up correctly. And so it's not unusual to spend $1,000 for a cover. And that, between the cover design and the editing, that's a lot of money up front on, you don't know if it's going to sell, especially if you're an unknown author and you don't have the connections that the traditional publishing houses do. They have the connections to, like, Oprah back when she had her show, or the Today Show, or all that stuff. And indie authors simply don't. We have to rely on other means. But even as a traditionally published author, I wasn't given access to that either. So you just make the best decisions you can. So that was a lot of investment. Eventually I learned to do my own cover design. And I got pretty good at it. So I enjoy it too. I enjoy that aspect of the creativity. And now I'm doing my own audiobooks. And it's funny, in the indie author community, there's this mindset that authors shouldn't design their own covers and authors shouldn't narrate their own audiobooks, especially fiction audiobooks. And I call bullshit on that. I say, if you're willing to invest the time to learn and develop your skills, you can do whatever the hell you want. So I'm a bit of a Renaissance author in that aspect, because I like to do the cover design. I'm enjoying doing the audiobook, not just the narration, but also the mastering, the editing. I got my degree in journalism, but with the emphasis in audio production. Now, granted, that was analog audio production, and wasn't as technical as it is now, but it was a good start. It gave me a sense of what I needed to shoot for, and I love it. I mean, even the tedious task of removing mouth clicks and breaths and all that stuff, I enjoy doing that. Eventually I'll probably have to outsource some of that stuff, but I enjoy doing that, and I think my fans will enjoy that as well. So these are some of the reasons why I went indie. I now, one of the great things, because I sell direct on my own website, I get like 99% or 97% of the cover price. And because I sell direct and not just on Amazon or the retailers, I also get paid in a few days rather than a couple of months, which I like. It makes the cash flow easier. And so, yeah, I love being an indie author. It's rebellious. But being a queer author, you gotta forge your own path. As a trans woman, I had to forge my own path and figure out how to live my life. And this year I've hit $16,000 in revenue so far. And the past month or so has been a little bit rougher because the Facebook ads haven't been delivering as much as I would have liked. And part of that is on me because I kind of set things on cruise control for a while I focused on other things, dealing with my knee surgery. But I created some new ads and people are buying again, and I'm really happy about that. Being an indie author means you are responsible for your career. I had this thought, and I don't look down on traditional published authors. I love my traditionally published siblings. If that works for you, that's great. But it's hard, a lot of the reason people stick with traditional publishing is, well, I just want to write. Well, that's getting harder and harder to do because publishing houses are doing less and less of the marketing. So you're going to have to learn those skills too. And you're going to have to figure out how to make that profitable with a much smaller cut of the pie. So good luck with that. But I liken traditional versus indie to women who choose, they get married and they choose to be a stay-at-home wife, with or without kids, and that is a valid path. I want to say, stay-at-home moms, if it's financially feasible, and that fills your heart with joy, I have nothing but respect, and that allows a lot of authors, female authors, to write, because they don't have to worry about a job taking up a lot of their time. But I'm rambling, of course. My point is that in being a stay-at-home wife and or mother, they make themselves dependent on their spouse, and that comes with risks. And a lot of I've seen in some indie author spaces, people call traditional publishing dependent publishing, because you are dependent on your publisher, and there are so many risks associated with that. Just as there are risks with with being dependent on a husband for income. For traditional published authors, your agent could leave or quit, or something could happen to your agent. Your editor could quit or leave or something, and your books could get orphaned. Your publishing house could go out of business or get bought out, and they just kind of disappear from the shelves, and you can't get your rights back. And that has happened to a lot of authors. Midnight Inc. was a wonderful publishing house. It was a small press, but it was as small presses go, is a big small press, and they did great work. They published a lot of great novels, and they treated their authors really well. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep the lights on, and I don't know the details of that. I have a dear friend who was the acquiring editor for Midnight Inc., and she's an amazing person. But a lot of authors got orphaned, and I don't know if they all got their rights back. That's heartbreaking. And as an indie author, I don't have that risk. I'm in charge. I'm the publisher. I'm the one that reaches out to make all the hard business decisions. So I like that creative and professional control. So I rambled on far too long. I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you see, please subscribe, and consider buying me a coffee. There's a link in the description. And also, if you like crime thrillers where queer women kick ass, I encourage you to check out my website, also in the description, and consider buying one of my books, or maybe even a bundle. You get 20% off of any ebook or paperback bundle. So, and those bundles are only available on my website, by the way. So, have a wonderful day, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.